Okay, one more thing that we want to do before we go into layout is just to get all these layers into order. We don't need them in so many layers. In fact, I'm putting them in two different layers, jack and the environment. That is to give myself an option if I want to exclude a certain layer from being affected by light. So if I'm gonna be using some light that is meant just to highlight certain parts of jack, and I don't want them to affect the environment, I can just put that in another layer and then just exclude that layer from that light's influence. So that's the reasoning behind this layering situation, putting jack in one layer and the environment in the other. And just yeah, send to layout, and here we are in layout. And make sure you go into render tab and turn on all of these options: trace occlusion, reflection, shadows. And just want to make sure that the smooth is there at 60% and that everything is double-sided. I put smooth at 60%. It's a nice number I found. In 99% of the cases, at least for me, I wanted the smooth to be around 60. So I put it by default, on all surfaces, smooth 60, and I press double-sided. And this is where I want the camera to be. And just pressing F9 for the default scene, for the default light, to see what we're getting there. So I'm gonna set up standard 3 light setup, which I find very nice for these turntable images. And it consists of one main light, one rim light on the back, and one fill light on the other side. So this is our main light, and I put it around 50% in light intensity. Then I just clone it and put this. The main light I usually put as area light, and this rim light I put as spotlight. And I don't want it to be affecting the ground and the environment, just jack. Such a strong spotlight up ahead would cast really sharp shadows on the environment. But I do want these tombstones to be affected by this rim light, and not the environment, not the turntable, that is. And now you see there that the light is also affecting our tombstone. And for the side light, I cloned the top light and place it like this, lower the light intensity to 50%. And name it side fill light. And now quick render lets us know where we're at. The next thing that we want to do is enable radiosity. So go under render globals, global illumination, and enable radiosity. Raise per relation, 12 is enough. And interpolated, I'm going to leave on. Interpolated really speeds up the render, and sometimes it can manifest as blotching, and in the animations you're going to see that, and many times interpolated will not work. Or maybe if you're rendering like a room where there's a lot of light bounces, you might see some splotching. But right now interpolated is going to work for us just fine, especially for the test render phase, because it really speeds up the render. And after rendering it, I saw this really strong light line on the chin of Jack's head, which I didn't care for. And now I'm just turning off one light at a time to see which light is affecting it. And yeah, it's the side filler light. So I'm going to adjust the settings a little bit to see how I can maybe soften this soften this transition. And yeah, turning shadows, this is what we get. And yeah, just kind of seeing the difference, how this affects my setup. But the best thing, I think, it is to change it into area light, because that really softens this transition. And yeah, that's exactly what I did. And I'm liking what we have here. And I want to see what will happen if I also allowed it to affect the environment, the side fill light. And yeah, I like the results. Now what I want to do is make this background black. So I'll go under backdrop and add texture environment. And we're going to use the procedural texture value, and just add the value that you want. I want this to be black. And yeah, the problem is that we also lose some of the lightness of our scene. The reason for this is because we're using backdrop radiosity, and he's using directly the backdrop color. And we want to keep this value of the backdrop color as it is. So go into Photoshop and create a really small full black image like this. It can be like 5 pixels by 5 pixels. It really doesn't matter the size. And save it as black made, or just simply black will be sufficient. And again, go under compositing, and under background image, let's load our black and render this out. Now this will allow us to keep our background color for radiosity, but to have our black image stretched all over our background in the render. And yeah, now you can see that our if we increase the backdrop color to complete white, and we do test render, you can see that the image is really white. The radiosity light is really strong. Yet our background image is still black. And this is a neat trick for you to separate the background color in the radiosity and the background color that you have in the render. And of course, we're not going to use this bright white. We're going to bring it back to the color that it was, that I liked. And I'm just checking out the atmosphere that I want to achieve in our render, looking through different reference images from the movie itself. And it is kind of a bluish color that perhaps we will go for at the end. And these scenes are a little bit darker. I want our model to be seen just a little bit more. As far as the light setup goes, I'm pretty happy with what we have here. And now I want to get this kind of feeling that we have on our reference image on our turntable base stone. But before that, let me just try to see how this will look if I tint everything a little bit bluish. And that we can do by changing the backdrop color that Radiosity uses. And yeah, not so happy with this method. After all, it does look, a bit closer to the atmosphere that we have here. But I think it will be better just to do this in post color correction on the final image. It will give us a bit more control to the whole process. So just returning everything to the what it was. And now I'm gonna work on the turntable base texture. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just add a little bit more details in the texture. And before we do that, I want to render one render just so we know where we're starting from, so we can see how the changes we make affect our render. So going into turntable base color, and I want to add a turbulence texture, and changing its color into red to have a clear view of how it is affecting the surface. And when we press L, we're going to activate limited region. So we don't have to wait for the whole thing to render, because we're really just interested right now in the turntable base. And you can immediately see in the render status what's happening there. And this whole texturing process is about, adjusting settings a little bit here and a little bit there. So that's what you're going to see here. Basically, kind of changing the opacity of the layer and changing the size, and just making little tweaks until we get what we want. My idea behind this texturing here is just to add a little bit of life to the stone, add some discolorations, add some wear and tear, so to say. And so after this turbulence layer, I want to add one fractal noise. It's going to affect like a wider area. And yeah, just hiding that turbulence layer just to see exactly what is this layer affecting. And by going, from the previous render to the current render, we can really see what effect we're getting there. And just lowering the contrast a little bit to kind of even the situation out. And as I said, the whole process behind this texturing of the stone is about making small changes and seeing how they affect your render. It's a lot of trial and try and see situations. So don't be shy, just to experiment, to see what would happen if you lower the size, the scale. As long as you have an idea of what you want to get, and you know basically what turbulence does and fractal noise does, you're going to be okay. Or this is of course a perfect time to get to know those procedural textures as well. And yeah, once you're happy with this color situation here, and I was happy with what we're getting, I wanted to go under BAMP map and start to add a little bit of bump to the stone. Right now is really smooth. So yeah, usually turbulence will do a very nice job for the rocky textures. And Right now it's a little bit too strong, and I want to see what maybe dented would do, and put the scale at 10 centimeters. And yeah, it looks a bit too small, so I'll invert it and go back to 1 meter. And yeah, I'm pretty happy the way that looks. Lower the opacity to something like 40. And again, as I said, it's just, seeing what you get and kind of adjusting those results to go where you want them to go. Right now, pretty happy with that. And now what I did is copied that layer that we had in the bump and pasted it in the color, because we want some of the color to kind of correlate with the bumps. So maybe some dents we want to be a bit darker, or some bumps to be a bit lighter. And a great way of making this connection is just to copy the procedural texture from the bump map into the color layer, and make a little bit of adjustments. You always have to play with the opacity and just to get a subtle change, and usually these subtle changes is what makes a texture great. So don't think, what 5%, nobody's gonna notice the difference. The difference is definitely going to be noticeable, and that's what I'm doing right now. Just playing with this dented color, making it a little bit more subtle until I'm happy with what I have. And I'm going to deactivate the dented layer and add one more procedural texture over that one. And I'm just, making a guess, basically educated guess, as they would say, in choosing these procedural textures, whether I want the bump to be covered widely or just some areas. Sometimes like puffy clouds will give you that limited coverage, while turbulence will cover everything with the bump. As you can see here, puffy clouds did pretty good, because I don't want the stone to have just one type of displacement to it, just dented. I want also to add a little bit of variety there, because these stone-like textures that I want to achieve, they're very not repetitive, as is one word. They're very developed. The surface is very developed. So you can see here that I'm getting really nice results with puffy clouds to get these dents, get these kind of chipped parts. And you can play till your heart's content, with these different bumps and different layers and different textures, until you get something you're happy with. And right now I really like how that feels. And I want to add one alpha procedural texture. That's going to, I'm just thinking about maybe lowering the coverage of these dents. They're covering a lot of area here. The stone looks pretty chipped. So I wanted to kind of lower that coverage. And using an alpha for that. And now just playing with the which procedural texture I want to use as alpha. Just checking out different results and seeing how they apply to the surface. And this will, I will see if I'm getting in the direction I want to be getting or getting away from it. And based on this, I'll make my decisions, whether to use that procedural or not. Now I'm just thinking maybe dented is the best. And yeah, I wanted you guys to see actually this whole creative process, not just, that I try this with the recording off and then just come here and tell you put this at this size and this texture at that size, then add procedural here. Because, for me it's kind of like try and see what happens. Kind of, as I said, educated guesses. And I wanted to show the whole process here. So, if you have to go through it, you don't think, how come these guys get it all right at first? No, it's, like little experiments. And I like the way, I like to work that way because then you can get unexpected things to happen. And that may take you in some other direction, which at the end is going to turn 5 times better than what you planned. And this has happened to me in, so many times, so many occasions. You think the texture is going to affect, sorry, just to close the window. I think the texture is going to work in one way and it works in another way, which is actually a lot better. And just takes you in this other direction, and the creative process has its life, and it gets you, usually to a very nice and beautiful place. And to get back to what I'm doing right now, it's just trying to get that smaller chip parts on the stone using different alphas. And yeah, just to speed things up a little bit here. This is basically how I went about to create this texture. Just experimented a little bit with the different alphas and different procedural textures. And once I'm happy with some bump, I'm going to also apply it in the color, just to add a little bit of color variation to where that bump is happening. And that's basically it. Just kind of a dance between the bump map and the color map. And here I'm using, quite a few of these procedural textures. And each one of those adds a little bit unique, its uniqueness to the color map. And you see me here just dirtying up parts where the bumps are happening. And it's a trial process, as I said. At the end, I did decide not to use that Wayne alpha. Like the results that I was getting. And here you see the render of the surface. And removing those 2 colors. I was really happy with this. So, seems like a perfect spot to save our scene. So just create a new folder that you're gonna call scenes, and going to record our scene as Jack scene version 001. And we can save all objects as well. So these changes are saved. And we're going to end this session here. And in the next session, I'm going to continue with the surfacing process.